folks. It is September 13th, 2023. My name is Gary Wimmer. We are the Network Austin Mixer. We have a great speaker, a great panel, and some great support from some great folks who are part of our core group. And first, I will introduce Tootie Hall, who sets up our Zoom meeting, and Tootie will introduce Michael, who will introduce our speaker, and good to have you folks with us. And if you have questions, put them in the reactions, raise your hand so we can see them in that order. Thank you. Sweet Tootie, all over to you, dear.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tootie Hall. I'm an actor with
in a
acclaimed talent.
Network
And
Austin Mixer.
I'm an actor with acclaimed talent and a core member. When we get to the Q&A, we won't be taking any questions in the chat. So if you have questions, please raise your hand so we can keep it in order. And now I'll be followed by Michael.
Hey folks, Michael Druck here. Also going to point out and say hey to Miss Denise Garza and to Mr. Jason Wassner there, who are here as well, who are also part of the board. But yes, welcome everyone. Thank y'all for joining us tonight. And if you weren't able to join us tonight and you're watching us later, howdy to y'all. And yeah, let's get this started with our guest of honor here for this month. What I like the multi-hyphenate here, right? We have our multi-talented producer, director, writer, actor, creative executive extraordinaire, Mr. Christopher Chisholm. So y'all please welcome him.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Well, go ahead and hop on there, Chris, and with just for people who are joining us, can you tell us just your elevator pitch about who you are, and the highlights so people know who you are in this town and in our industry.
Well, let me start at the beginning. I was born in Maine, so I'm a Mainer, a maniac. My name is Chisholm, which is a good Texas name because everybody's probably heard of the old Chisholm Trail. But I found my way to Austin grew up in Maine, then went to the University of Miami down in Florida to get out of that snow belt. Did my undergraduate work in theater, film, and television at University of Miami. Then the University of London. I am crazy about Shakespeare. And then I was a Broadway, off-Broadway, off-Broadway. Did a lot of regional repertory theater as an actor, playwright, director. I lived in New York City for 10 years. And then I lived in Los Angeles for 25 years. And then I got a phone call and someone said, there's a motion picture studio available to manage out in Bastrop, Texas called Spiderwood Studios. And I flew out here and met the man who built it and the owner, Tommy Warren, a former Paramount Pictures executive. And we knew a lot of the same people. I'd worked at Paramount before, but we had never met each other. But we knew a lot of the same people. So we set up shop here as Spark River Entertainment. And I'm the president and chief creative officer of Spark River Entertainment. And we produce film and television and streaming series, as well as documentaries, non-scripted, reality shows. And primarily, my focus has been on feature films and series television. I've been a screenwriter, a director, a production executive, a creative executive. I've started media companies. When I first got to Hollywood back in 1987, I was on the launch team with the founders of E! Entertainment Television. So that was my first job in Hollywood. I ran into an old friend from the East Coast, and I had been in town maybe 30, 40 days. I had just moved to Los Angeles. And I went to Malibu Beach one Sunday afternoon just to take a dip and cool off. And I heard somebody say, "Hey, Chizzy!" And it was a buddy of mine from New York. And he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I just moved to LA. I'm, seeking out my fame and fortune in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles." This was on a Sunday. And he said, "What are you doing Tuesday?" And I said, "Nothing, of course. I'm an actor. I'm waiting for the phone to ring." He said, "Well, Tuesday, I want you to come down to this address, throw on a jacket and tie. I want you to interview Arnold Schwarzenegger on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's getting his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame." And this was the very first remote production. and the very first content that we produced for E-Entertainment Television back in 1987. We launched it some 4 months later on July 31st of 1987, and I ended up developing, producing, and hosting 500, 600 hours of content for the network, developing shows, worked very closely with Greg Kinnear of Talk Soup and now of Mr. Movie Man. Everybody knew Greg had that certain spark. And that was my first 4 years in Hollywood, which was like a crash course in television producing and production. And so, and then I went on to build my own entertainment companies and produce and write and direct. And I love the business. I've been in it for over 35 years, and it has never bored me, but it always surprises me.
Well, it's interesting. First of all, that was really cool. I could picture everything that you're saying because I was a huge and am a huge E-News fan, and just to see any type of network at its infancy. Like I know people who started at MTV when it started or VH1, and it's not an easy job. You're having to create content as you go, and you're finding your sea legs, but it's also fun. I'm sure you learned a lot too. So that's amazing that you were able to bring that back down here. And you said you did take over a studio here in Buda. Is that where you were?
No, it's in Bastrop.
Bastrop.
Yeah, it's
Bastrop.
called Spiderwood Studios. We are a state-of-the-art motion picture and film studio. We have a 162-acre backlot on 1.2 miles of the Colorado River with 4 beautiful state-of-the-art sound stages. We have editing, a music recording studio, post-production suites, a podcast studio, talk show studio, and 3 sound stages that are full right now, as a matter of fact. So every production we have right now is non-union, but we've got some YouTube social influencers here. We have a non-union documentary being done, as well as a talk show that's being produced as well. So it's something's always cooking here at Spiderwood Studios.
Well, that's great to hear, because I think a lot of people in this room want to know, are we even working right now? What type of work is happening right now? So thanks for clarifying it is non-union. And I know some SAG music videos are happening once in a while, and SAG commercial, or depending on what commercial contract it is. Jason could probably chime in a lot more to that. But we are working, and that's the perk of Texas, while we navigate these waters, and our WGA and our SAG friends are working all that out. But to back up a bit about our non-strike world, or just in general, why do you think producers like to shoot in Texas, at your studio in particular?
Well, first of all, it's Texas. I found I grew up in a small town, and I love small towns, and living out in Bastrop now, I love Central Texas and I love Austin, but being in a bedroom community and a small community and a very historic small town like Bastrop, I feel very much at home, because I've lived in big cities my whole life. So I'm really happy to be in Texas. I have found the community, and particularly the entertainment community, the film and television community here, the creative community, has been extraordinarily welcoming, very gracious, very genuine, and a real warm embrace and welcome here, because people in Texas, in our industry, need and want to collaborate. This is one of the independent film headquarters or capitals in the world. It's not Hollywood. That's why a lot of people are coming here. People aren't trying to bring Hollywood to Texas. I think people are finding refuge in Texas, and finding that there's a great quality of life. It's a right to work state. It's a business friendly state. It's a creative friendly state, the live music capital of the world. We've got a big high tech corridor. Motion picture and television productions are very high tech in many, many of the aspects of production. And I find a very gracious, genuine, and warm welcome here. And I've really enjoyed meeting people in the community, and particularly in the entertainment community here. I think people are flocking here. There's no personal income tax. It's very business friendly, but it's also booming. And I think, in a way, film and television have kind of taken, backseat to high tech and music, but we're coming on strong, particularly with the new TMIP, the Texas Moving Image Incentive Program has been increased this legislative session from $40 million to $200 million. That's a big deal. And that's what is also going to attract and bring back a lot of production Central Texas and the entire state of Texas. But primarily, I think the Austin area is the hippest town in Texas. This is where creatives want to be.
So piggybacking on what you just said, the new incentive, moving image, thank you for all those who were involved in this. If you're in this room, TXMPA legislators, even if you just gave $5 or a moment of your time, that all went towards that movement. Has the phone been ringing more? Are you getting more inquiries for when we're done with this strike, or like since the word of has hit the street that we had this legislation passed?
It's on fire. It's unhinged. Today I talked to people in Miami, Los Angeles, and New York. They're all wondering, we're talking about the strike, but we're also talking about commercial contract has not struck. There's a lot of commercial stuff going on. This is a right to work state, but we're not, I'm after a SAG, equity, PGA, I'm a pro labor guy, which is always a hard balance when you want to produce product. When you're a producer, I also am very pro labor. And I think this is a righteous cause, and it's a crossroads, and it could be a paradigm shift, particularly for Texas, because as we see the waivers and the productions that are moving forward, what we're seeing is independent film could have a whole new dynamic as far as the studios, if they're not going to play, but some of the more independent companies and production companies, particularly in Texas, do meet the requirements. We're going to see more independent production coming here, and I think it's going to be good for Texas. I'm not saying the strike is good for us, it's bad for us, but I think we're finding ways to engage with the creative community to continue producing great film and television projects.
I'm glad you said that, because I feel like the common word out there, or the common notion is, if it's indie, it's cheap. I've seen indie films go up from that 300, 500,000 to like 3 million, 4 million, 5 million even. And I'm just like, whoa, like that's crazy now. And I agree with you. I think from the calls I get too on my end, I think we are going to start to see bigger price tags, and, and people like, there's just going to be so much more room and more quality. And it's great to hear from you. And I've heard from friends at the Film Commission too, that they're getting inquiries daily. So actors, crew, all out here, people who want to get in the industry. It sounds like once this gets resolved, we're going to be busy. So, use this time wisely.
That's a good point, Michael. I had one friend who was with a major studio who came here to visit and kick the tires and see where I was hanging my shingle out here in Bastrop in Texas. And this is when we first got here in very, very early 2022. And he was like, best of luck, but you call me when your incentives are better and we can do something. And that's happening now. When we're talking about all the streamers, all the studios, we're not competing with Hollywood. We're competing with Georgia, Albuquerque, Louisiana, New Mexico, Louisiana, even Oklahoma. And when I got here, after I had seen kind of what the climate was as far as the attitude from people outside of Texas, was that you really got to work on that. So with some other folks, including the Texas MPA and the Texas Media Coalition, we did put together some new legislation. I was very active working with the lobbyists and the head of the Texas Media Coalition. His name is Chris DeBeck. He's a producer from Los Angeles. Chris, a wonderful, wonderful guy, a good friend and a wonderful man. He had worked with James Cameron for 5 years. They worked side by side, and he worked and produced a lot of motion pictures. He came to Texas with a Texas project, and there was no money for that project, and he ended up having to shoot in Oklahoma. And that was when I first moved here. He moved here shortly before I did. And he said, that's it. We got to do something to change the incentive program. So it got all the way to the state legislature this year. I was at the hearings. I worked with lobbyists. We spoke, throughout the city together. I was asked to, talk about the industry and my feelings about why this was needed and how good it would be for the state, for our economy. The economic impact that films bring to communities is real, and it is remarkable. So it got all the way to the House. It passed the House. We went to a Senate hearing, and what they did was they basically said, we're going to it was a 500% increase from 40 million to 200 million. Now it's about how we execute and manage that funding and see what it does for the state, because they're saying there will be a 5x return for every dollar spent on production in Texas. There'll be a $5.07 return. So that $200 million could equate to an economic impact of over $1 billion for Texas. That's with a B. And when the guys up in Austin on Capitol Hill see that, they'll say, well, why don't we tweak it up a little bit? Maybe we'll get 500 million next time. That's what we're hoping for.
I mean, all that just sounds very promising. What I love about what you're saying too is even people who have our side hustles or our own businesses and, you know, capital ventures, if you are a vendor or you're a caterer or you offer a service that is of service for these productions, that means more money for you too. You know, dry cleaners and food and beverage vendors. I love that story from, I'm a San Antonio native, when the Alamo was shot, in 2004 or whenever it was. And, you know, all these companies started because of that one film, you know, ice houses and all this stuff. It's just ridiculous how much money can bring in now that we have that coming in. So thank you for shedding light on that. And also thank you for the work that you did on behalf of the Moving Image Incentive and you being down there. That really helps to see how we got that. So, there's a lot of filmmakers in here, people who do 48-hour film projects, people who always have their own pet project, people who want to get their film made. What advice do you have for those filmmakers to kind of like just get to that level where they would be able to, say, have a budget or work at a studio or be able to use a studio or use the resources that you have versus, you know, I guess just hopping over that fence a little bit, like, or getting to that level? Do you have any sense of advice for that?
Oh, yeah. I'm very passionate about, if you want to do it, do it. Don't stop. There's so much opportunity. There are more outlets than ever for our creative gifts that we have. There's more streamers, there's more content, there's more production, there's more outlets. You've got broadcasting, cable, and films, and feature films, and indie films. Plenty of streamers. There is a voracious appetite for content. And the other thing is, for many years, I taught writing and I taught acting, and I also taught the business of show business in LA. And I taught at the Stella Adler Academy. Stella Adler, one of the great method acting gurus like Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studios. As a matter of fact, they were both part of the group theater in New York City back in the 30s with really famous playwrights and producers and actors. And one of the things I always said was never stop, because something can break at any time. You never, ever know. And when you go to a casting session, I was casting one project and there was someone that was just not quite right. And you hate to hear that as a talent, as an actor, you hate to hear that. But it was someone that impressed me so much. 4 years later, I still remembered her. Her name was Lisa. I still remembered her and cast her in another project years later of something I was directing, because she was perfect that time. And we're still in touch all these years later. So you never know. Every audition is a performance. Every shot you get is just a joke. We used to say a joke is a job, and so is an audition, and it's no joke. Go in there, make the best impression that you can, because the more you work, the smaller the business seems to get. You're meeting more people. It becomes more and more intimate as you become more familiar in any marketplace: New York, LA, Austin, Miami, Minneapolis, London, anywhere. But I always encourage people, don't stop. If you want to do it, I call it the Nike philosophy. Just do it. Just do it. Keep doing it. Also, if you are an actor, stay in class. It's really important to always be working. You must be seen in scene study. You must always keep your instrument in tune. You must always, if you're a DP or a director or a writer, keep writing, keep shooting your small films, get behind your camera, keep editing, keep finding your skill set, because it's going to come in handy. You're going to use it. So practice, 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 just the same way you get to Carnegie Hall, right? Practice, practice, practice. Or you can take the M103 bus right down Broadway.
Love that. And I'm glad you said business is show business, because I talk to a lot of my agent colleagues, Jason. We talk about this. I talk a lot about this with other agents. a lot of actors, especially, that there's not a lot of business of show business classes for people. And, agents don't have the time to walk you through and hold your hand. We really don't have managers in this market. There's no need for that.
Right.
And then also filmmakers who, any end of that, there's so much business that goes involved. Your LLC, how do I bankroll this? How do I file that? And how do I pay my crew? So much is involved, but I think, a class like that would do really well. So if you ever do them again, please let us know, because I'm sure there's a lot of people. And I do notice a lot of people in here who do take a lot of classes on the regular. So good for our well-trained actors here. Now, I'm just going to say this because I'm on social media all the time and I see this a lot. We all probably click the same things. So I know people get excited when a new studio is announced or a studio might come to town. And to me, because I know how legislation works just like you do, sometimes it's the chicken before the egg thing. It's like, well, does it take the studio first or does it take the incentive to get the studio? So what is your take on, when people say, oh, new studios being built, or like Netflix is coming or Hulu's coming, like, oh, what is your 2 cents on that, because you are in that industry?
I am, and I've been in the brick and mortar business, part of the business as well, operating media companies and also doing studio initiatives in New England, California, and now Texas. So the first thing is, I think I welcome it. I'll tell you why. All boats rise. If there's a new studio in San Marcos or another studio in Bastrop, or San Antonio gets more sound stages, or in Dallas or Houston, what we're going to see is it's going to be a magnet and attract more production. And one studio can't handle every single production that wants to come to Texas. So I look at it as friendly competition. Matter of fact, Marty Jones, who runs Austin Film Studios over at the old airport at AFS, he's a dear friend. He's shooting here right now because he doesn't have a backlot. But the thing is, I see Central Texas, particularly Bastrop County, because there may be a competing but friendly studio initiative here as well. It's called the 552 studio right now. But I would say that very quickly, Bastrop County particularly could become the Burbank of Austin. In Burbank, you've got Universal, Warner Brothers, Disney, NBC Studios. I think we can see the same thing happening in Greater Austin too. I think San Marcos, there was another big announcement. It's been announced several times, but that's going to be I think it's going to happen. I think with what we're seeing is that investors, people who develop real estate, particularly for our entertainment industry, know that there's a lot of land here. It's a very business-friendly environment. There's no personal income tax. There are grant programs and a lot of concessions that this legislature and the government here in Texas wants to attract more business. And I think that's happening in our segment, in our sector, in entertainment. I think it's great.
That's great too, because if we do get filled up really fast, the perception could be, oh, your 3 studios are filled, we got to go to the next state, or something like that, So the more that we have, the more professional we look, if it's ran well and all that. Are there, I know you mentioned there are many, but are there any off the top of your head that you could guide either filmmakers or first-time filmmakers or people who are looking to get to that next level, guides or resources to get additional funding? Is that there any places that you would direct people towards if they do want to get their pet project off the ground, or get more funding for something, or goods and services such as crew or equipment?
Learn how to write grants. That's right. That's a very important skill to have. If you're talking about financing your projects, there are many, many ways to do it, but it's a tough slog, because film financing is a very, very specific skill and a tricky business, particularly when you're doing a slate. We have a slate for 2023 and 2024 that's 40 different projects. So there's a lot going on. But if you want to finance your own projects, there's money out there. There's money in the state. There's money with the National Endowment of the Arts. There's money for the grant programs, even from corporations. You can get out there and search how to fund my film, how to get grants, how to get public money. There's money out there that is sitting there waiting for somebody to write the right grant or the right application to get that kind of financing. Then there's private financing too, and that's all about connections and networking, and that's a full-time job as well. But the most important thing I think is to self-promote, continue to market yourself, and to continue to create. When I was teaching writing, I used to first class, you know, we have the Austin Film Festival Writers Retreat here every year, and I always meet great writers, and I love writers. I was married to one for a while, but anyway, but I tell writers, I'm today in the first class, in the very first statement I'm going to make, I'm going to give you the secret to writing. So grab your pens. You ready? The secret to writing is writing. The secret to violin, play your violin. The secret to dance, dance. The secret to acting, act. You want to direct, direct. There's nothing really stopping us except ourselves. I mean, really, you got to go for it. You got to really just apply your craft and practice your craft all the time. Always be working. The other thing is, I would also tell them the secret to great writing, and that's rewriting. And that's the hardest part, is to rewrite. If you're a writer, you can relate to that, because writing is easy. The blank page may be scary, but once you start scribbling and you got yourself a story, that's writing. But the hardest part and the secret to great writing is rewriting. And that's very, very difficult. The other challenge about acting is this: you can practice violin or piano or voice or dance alone. But besides doing your monologues for auditions, or, you know, really, you know, dusting off and polishing your monologues, it's really hard to act in a vacuum. That's why I so highly recommend professional scene study for the professional actor, to get out there and work out every week. Always be working. When you book a gig, there's nothing that your acting coach or your scene study teacher is going to be more proud of than giving you the next 6 or 8 weeks off to go do a feature or TV show, welcome you back with open arms, back to scene study class, back to acting class when you wrap that project. So always be working.
That's a thing. I feel like once those floodgates open and we go back to work, there isn't going to be a lot of time for, oh, let me go meet with my coach and let me go do this and let me go do that, or work on my reel or update my profiles. We're going to be full speed ahead, you know. So I'm glad that the people who are watching this today are taking their notes and mentally observing and this is kind of something we've been preaching since the strike and since all that happened, is use your time wisely. Use this time.
You know, Michael, you know what? There was another thing I wanted to say that you asked before that I wanted to mention. We are teeing up projects for that green light. I mean, we are just chomping at the bit right at the starting gate, because when this does settle, there is going to be a flurry of production and pent up projects that are now having some measure of luxury to be more polished in pre-production and development, particularly for what we're doing in Texas. And I'm seeing a lot of that, and I'm getting a lot of inquiries for people. Today I got a call from Boise, Idaho, Los Angeles, and Washington State about projects we want to shoot in Texas. I mean, everybody's Texas happy, which makes me happy. It's great.
That's great. Well, I got about 1 or 2 more questions, but gang, feel free to raise your hand using the raise hand icon and we'll totally get to your question. I would love for you to ask CHIZ any questions that you have. But yeah, go ahead and start raising those hands. And then let me ask you, we do have actors in the room. Yeah, you could raise your hand. We do, or you could throw it in. I know I said don't use the chat feature, but if that's what you have to use, if you can't find your little hand, just type it in. I'm right here. There's a small group of us today and we can make it work. Let's see here. Small but important. There we go. Since we do have a lot of actors here, are there any actors that you know of? And again, this is something I'm not aware of, you know, even in the casting field. Do actors ever take advantage of using your studios to possibly produce their own content for their reels? Or do you know any shooters that work on those type of stuff?
That's a great question. One of the things I like to do is I never say no. Whenever I can, I always say yes, of course, yes, yes. We had here's a couple quick stories. I was lecturing at UT, and a grad student came up to me. He said, "Could I shoot my MFA graduate film on the backlot?" I said, "Absolutely." He said, "Well, I don't know, I don't have that big a budget." And I said, "Come out, we'll talk." There's a rate card that we have for union professional productions. But if I have a student filmmaker or a really ultra low budget film, I'll work with people. It's better to have somebody out on the backlot or in a soundstage than it sit empty for a day. And if there's holes in the schedule, Yeah, we'll give you a great rate. And we made it happen. And we had a wonderful experience with him. Then I was over at Austin Public, and I love, if you know Austin Public, that's another great resource and a great facility here. I mean, you know, God bless Rick Linklater, right? I mean, what he's done with Austin Film Society, with the cinema and Austin Public and the studios is remarkable. And it's had a great impact on the business here, as well as Troublemaker and Terrence Malick and all the other talent and directors and actors and writers and filmmakers here. But Austin Public's another wonderful resource. They have all the equipment. You can take great classes. You can learn how to write and shoot and edit and produce, and you get checked out on their gear. And it's just a great facility. And that's another resource for everybody on this call: actor, writer, producer, director, DP, editors, post-production, music, everything. There's a lot of resources in this town, and many of them are either free or cheap, which is great. And network. I have always been a networking monster. I love networking, meeting people. You know, even in New York and LA, those big city markets, it was when you go to a party any night of the week, it's not a party. If you're a real professional, it's a networking opportunity. You go and you socialize, but I was always meeting people that I would meet again and again. And I always found that that was half the job as well, is to be social and network and make your connections as you fill up your contacts. Again, I would say that the business in any marketplace, particularly in Austin, gets smaller and smaller and smaller the more and more and more people you meet, because then you know everybody. I've met everybody in the past couple of years here, and I've just loved the community. Everybody really pulls together, particularly in Austin, and it's very different than LA. As a matter of fact, this hat stands for Love Austin. I don't know if you knew that. I'm even a Longhorns fan now. What a game last week. Anyway.
Well, yeah, if you go out to LA and those actors and crew who've been out there, you know, like, and Amanda, I know you've been out there before a lot too. You lived out there too. It's just so spread out. Like, you have to really work to network and to find your network and to find your people. So it is a gift to have such a community that we do, where honestly, if you just get out there, you are going to meet everyone. That's inevitably you're going to. Wanted to segue a little bit more. So I talked a lot about how actors can utilize your studio, and maybe actors who want to make their films and all that stuff. How, what advice do you have for crew members who might want to start as a PA or grip or costume? So many departments out there that always need filling. Like, what is your 2 cents on people getting involved or getting their feet wet in departments such as those?
In 35 years, I have seen more PAs become directors, ADs, cinematographers, producers, line producers, executive producers, production managers. It's amazing once you get in how quickly you can advance, because one day somebody will call in sick and they'll say, hey, let's call Michael. He's a great PA. He can probably do some line producing. We can at least second AD or second camera. I mean, there's so many different opportunities. Once you get on the field, one day you're water boy, the next day you could be the starting quarterback. I mean, it's unbelievable. I've seen that over and over again in the business. It's about community, and this is very much like the theater and film and television. Although they're different parts of our trade and our craft, there is a camaraderie and a natural mentoring of those with experience who see the spark and light and gift set in the young people who enter and enjoy the business. And you can just see that spark, people who are go-getters that you want to work with, you know, be great to work with, be early, work hard. And a lot of the work that I got over the years, I heard people like, you're just easy to work with. It's just fun to work with you. You want to work with great people, doing great stuff, producing a great product, and hopefully having a great time.
Now, do you keep your own short list of, like, say, if someone in this room really wanted to say, hey, email you and say, think of me when you need a PA, or an out-of-town producer comes in and I do makeup, or, you know, do you keep your own internal list?
Yeah, I have a production book. I have everything from, you know, cinematographers to caterers, everything from craft services to transportation. And
Y'all heard that? Yeah, y'all keep in touch with CHIZ and any other person you meet along the way. That's great.
And one of my biggest things is not saying no, because you never know when you're gonna, everybody's a diamond in the rough. You just got to get out of the rough sometimes. Use your pitching iron. You always got to be pitching.
I know in casting, upgrades are kind of like that unicorn, but like you can't get that upgrade unless you're on set. Like that's just how it works. Like you don't get it from being at home. So that's that. But on the on camera end, especially now, I know we came from COVID, and then we came from back from, now we're in the strike and all that. But say when everything's a normal year, do you produce events at your studio, like community events or workshops, or just good old holiday parties? Like what does your studio produce as far as event wise?
This is an amazing facility. We're on a 1.2 miles of the Colorado River, as I mentioned. We have a 162-acre backlot. We have a haunted house down in the woods that was actually built as a prop house for a film by Eduardo Sanchez, who directed the Blair Witch Project. Also, in 2014, directed Exists. And Exists was a horror film. It was a Sasquatch Bigfoot movie. It was a really cheesy, great film. And he left the prop house. He was like, it would cost me more to remove it than to leave it there. And now dozens of films have shot there. Matter of fact, the student film I was just talking about, the UT MFA film, just shot there as well. And we just had another shoot. I don't know if you know Lisa Belcher of Jump Rock Pictures, another local director. Lisa's great. She just shot House of Abraham on the back lot here. So, but the thing is, yes, we have a facility that has all state of the, we've got the largest green screen in Texas. We've got a 100-foot wide cyclorama wall. It's 50 by 50, 25 feet tall. We have a 7,500-foot square sound stage and 3 other sound stages, podcast studios, post-production facility, a full recording studio, a live television uplink with master control switch studio. But also we do events, mixers, like the Elgin Chamber of Commerce, the Bastrop Chamber of Commerce come here. The Austin Chamber has been out here. But we also, this past April, we had a 5-day music festival. The backlot is so big, we had about 700 campers, vans, and trailers, and there was plenty of room for camping. And then there was a big main stage, and they had a big vendor village with, t-shirts and jewelry and candles and all that cool stuff. And it was called the Ecstatic Forest Festival. And then there was a food truck, big circle of food trucks. And it was a 5-day music fest. People checked in and they just hung out for 5 days. And it's a beautiful venue for that kind of event. It's like Coachella goes to Bastrop. It was pretty cool. And then we do a lot of creative retreats, writers' retreats, chamber events, private parties, everything but weddings. I don't want to get in the wedding business, but yeah, we do host a lot of creative events and retreats as well.
Only if you get to film the Bridezillas as like its own movie. Now, that
Exactly.
would be fun.
Exactly.
If we're using them, then that's fine.
Or if we get Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson out here to do, what was the Wedding Crashers?
Wedding Crashers. Oh yeah.
We'll do part 3, Wedding Crashers, down at the.
Or if we could do a Bridesmaids too. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there we there we go. Any questions, folks? We're opening it up. So again, you can throw your question in there. You can raise your hand. CHIZ is here. Use them while you can. He won't be able to answer questions when we get back into things. I'll tell you that. Anyone? We got such
I see Gary's hand.
Oh, well, Gary, go for it.
Thank you. Great insights to your empowering, enlightened, determined spirit, my brother. It's incredible.
Thank you for having me. Yes.
Since you're such an enlightened, inspiring human being, I'd like to know something you went through in any field, acting, writing, directing, that you thought, oh, this will never work, and it did, and you learned something that blew your mind. I'm sure you've had a lot, but if you got one that's an ace in the hole, love to hear it.
It's an interesting position I'm in, looking at expanding a motion picture studio in Central Texas. And we're talking about an anchor boutique hotel, an amphitheater, a mixed use, kind of like Universal City Walk, a mixed use of, upscale retail, fine dining, etc., to have a destination for filmmakers to come to right near historic downtown Bastrop. I started a media company back in 2005 called Good News Holdings, and we were a vertically integrated company. So the parent company was Good News Holdings. Right now, the parent company is Spark River Entertainment. That's my company. And at Good News Holdings, we had the verticals. The horizontal was the parent holding company. The verticals were film, television, music, publishing, and social media. Then we got a call from the state of Massachusetts, and there was an initiative in Massachusetts back in 2005, 6, and 7, where Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were doing Project Greenlight at HBO, if you remember that, which was a very successful initiative for HBO, and put those guys in the position of having their own production company and bringing on people who would compete to be on their staff and make movies with Ben and Matt, which is cool. And I'm a New England boy originally. My family's all from the North Shore of Boston, and I was born and raised in Maine. So we got a call to put together a studio initiative in Plymouth, Massachusetts, which is just about 45 minutes south of Boston. Yes, the home of Plymouth Rock, where the Mayflower landed. And it was a golf course, about 240 acres of rolling hills. And we were working with the state legislature and the federal government for grants. We were working with all of the townspeople. We were working with creatives. We were working with architects and designers and developers and construction people. We were working with major studios for partnerships with all the major universities to do incubators, to have Harvard and MIT and Boston College and Boston University and Emerson and Northeastern all would have a place to incubate, and their film departments and their new high tech and social media and digital, everything from animation and graphics and computer generated CGI. So it was a very exciting $350 million initiative. And there were some, I would say red tape and also yellow caution signs. And the project didn't happen. I worked on it for 3 years. And after that experience, I asked, now, why in the world would I go through an experience like that, gain all this knowledge, make all these connections, and learn all these skills of how to build a studio if it's not going to happen? Well, 10 years later, I got a call and somebody said, why don't you come to Bastrop, Texas? So that exactly what happened, Gary. And it was something that seemed like a major loss, but you continue to press on, put one foot in front of the other. And I continued my business and my career. But there was always that, why would I spend all the time investing in that if I'm never going to use it? Well, I never should have said never, because that's when Central Texas called and I ended up right here in Austin. So it was that's a redemptive story. And that's we all are heir to the flesh. It is the human condition, the vicissitudes of life, the mountaintop and the valley. And I had valleyed out, and I was like, why did I spend all that time on that initiative and working on building it? And now I know why, because this was the time. So it's a great question. You hit me right in the heart, because that was a very difficult season. It wasn't defeating, but there was a measure of why, I wonder why that happened. And now I know.
Well, I'm glad you also said you looked at the warning signs too. That's very important too. So, or knowing when to walk away.
That's very
great
very
advice too. Or was it Desi Arnaz told Lucy Arnaz, if you don't know what to do, just stand there. Don't do anything. It's like, okay, great. You might need a minute to decide what to do. Ms. Tootie, you have a question?
Yes, my question is it possible to find out the productions there? And if so, how would an actor find out how to submit for those productions?
Well, there's two things. We are not only a content creator. Spark River Entertainment is a company that produces a slate of content, TV, feature films, documentaries, reality, non-scripted, even musicals. So we always have projects going on, and not always at our studio. If it calls for a London or Paris location, or Utah, then we go where, just like Paramount Pictures, they have a brick and mortar business, but they also produce their own motion pictures. So it's very much like a mini major studio where we do both. So the local production guides you can find at the Texas Film Commission. Michael, the resources that we have here for casting. Online, Facebook and Instagram, and all the listings that you see online and all those resources. When we have calls, we list them through our casting people. But if you are looking for the production guides and what's in pre-production and what's casting, those resources are out there. We don't publish those. That goes through our casting and production managers if it's on the production and crew side when we're crewing up. But we do find that we work with a lot of the same people all the time.
Miss Kelsey?
So real quickly, I'm sorry, Kelsey, hang on just a sec. What we don't do is we don't list our productions on our website. We list the facility and what we do as a creative content producer, but we would be unwise to, we can't publish a casting service on the, and we don't on the website.
Could you imagine how many emails you would get just daily from actors? Like, I heard you did this film 2 years ago. It's like, no.
Exactly.
Thank you, project casting. No, I'm just kidding. Not that I deal with that or anything. But no, that's a really good answer. But it also sounds like you got to just stay on top of your directories and stay on top of your listings and just to see, and it'll be listed if they're shooting at your studio, right? Typically.
Yeah.
Great.
But don't forget, the other thing is there are various locations. Even if it's based here at the studio, we'll shoot all over Texas, all over the country, all around the globe. But the other thing is we do accept and take resumes. Anybody who's on this call, if you're a writer, we do not accept unsolicited material. But now that we've met, you can say, hey, CHIZ, we met on the Zoom, and if you want to submit a screenplay, we have readers and a development department, and I read a lot of scripts constantly, all the time. And
is there a preferred email or contact info that you prefer? Is it through your website, possibly?
Yeah, I would info@sparkriverentertainment.com. info@sparkriverentertainment. You're a fast typer. That's good.
I try to. Okay.
That's good, Michael. Nice. There it is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, Miss Kelsey, now your turn.
Hi, Kelsey.
I just wanted to say thank you for hosting this. I had a really good time.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. I've been waiting for this all day. I love doing things like this and meeting beloved colleagues and co-creators that will hopefully all be working together one day soon. Are you an actress, Kelsey?
Yes.
I think you have a little producer in you too. I think you might end up producing your own projects. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, how many kids are watching TikTok while you're doing a business Zoom seminar? Like,
there you go. That's right.
Proud of you, Kelsey. Keep that up. It'll pay off.
She's working on her second book too.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Proud of you. I'm delighted to meet you. Kelsey Russell, ladies and gentlemen. Remember that name.
And thank you, mom and parents and support system for encouraging her along the way. We can't do this without y'all. So thank you so much.
You know, I had that same thing. It's so important. It really is. My family was so, I played football and baseball, and I was, and then I got in a high school play, and that was it. I love sports, but when I got the bug, I got the bug. And when I told my parents, I'm going to school for theater, film, and television, they were like, you go, boy, go. There wasn't a moment of hesitation. And that's a big deal too.
That is, and that's a blessing for sure. Kate, you have a question, Kate?
Hi there. Well, just piggybacking on what you were just saying about the writing aspect. Thank you for inviting us to send screenplays, but what if, for example, I have a first draft that took me like 4 months to write and I'm stalled out, like it's not ready. Do you offer any sort of, or do you have any recommendations for any groups, or are you offering any sort of feedback like that?
No. Yes. No. Yes. Okay. So don't forget, 20 minutes ago, I said the secret to great writing is rewriting, and it's hard. I know it's hard.
Yeah.
There are writer support groups. There's a lot of screenwriters in town. Find your friends and colleagues that are willing to do coverage or give you notes or coverage on your work, because that's really important for you to, sometimes we're so close to the things we create that we don't have that objective eye. And if you have a beloved and trusted colleague or friend or someone that's a professional, a mentor, or a teacher or anybody in the business, say, hey, would you read this first draft and give me some notes? And the other thing is, I've written dozens, well, a score of screenplays. A score is 20, but over 20 screenplays. And I found that when I put it down, and this, I don't mean to discourage you, but I put one down for a year and I kept writing anyway. But then I picked it up and I saw so many chinks in that armor, so many soft spots, so many places where it could be improved, and becoming a better writer and continuing to write. When I go back to some of the old material that I had written in my former life as a screenwriter, I found that I was a better writer and I could do a rewrite easier because I had taken some distance from it. So feedback, distance, because it's really hard when, look, writers love their writing. We do. We fall in love with our stories and our characters and whatever, like you were saying, that 3-act story structure and the protagonist and the antagonist and the action and the cataclysmic event and your Due Machina and your denouement and the climax. But then when you give it a little space, you can be more objective about it, and then keep writing. The only thing we don't do is we can't, I mean, we're not an institute or a school, but there's another thing I forgot to tell you. It's at Austin Public, which is another great resource, and the Austin Film, AFS, the Austin Film Society, and AFF, the Austin Film Festival, is very pro-writer. AFF, the Austin Film Festival, has seminars, workshops, and their membership all year long is always focused on writing. That's why they have their writers retreat here. So if you want to get serious about it, just keep writing and seek out your colleagues and companions and friends in the business and make more friends, and it'll work out for you, Kay. I promise.
Thank you.
No, I'm serious. But the thing is, one other thing I forgot to mention, we're also the home to the Art Institute of Austin. They have their facility here. They have their classrooms in downtown Bastrop. They've got 2 beautiful facilities for their lectures and classrooms and design studios. But their music studio, recording studio, their television studio, and some of their post-production classes are held right here on the back lot at Spiderwood. So it's really cool to have that here as well. And the other thing is, this is such a university and college and higher education rich area, like Massachusetts was. We've got Harvard and MIT and Northeastern and Emerson and Boston College, but we've got Texas State and UT and ACC and Texas A&M and all these great schools here, including the Art Institute. And they all have invested, particularly ACC, UT, Texas State, in new media and social media, digital production, film and television production. And a lot of those students are always looking to collaborate with others. And you don't necessarily have to enroll to have friends and colleagues that are in school, because that's a good resource as well.
Get a group of friends once or twice a month, have coffee with them and trade each other's screenplays. And then, that's a great way to get started.
Yeah, I had such a, Michael, that's a great advice too, because you can sit down and read it. It's like a book club, but it's better because it's a screenwriters club. It's screenplay club, and you get to read other people's stuff too.
Just don't give it to your boyfriend or your mom. They're all going to say you're fabulous, and then it's ready.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Kate. That's a great question, and I think that this whole mixture has really invigorated the inner screenwriter of us all, because we all have a project, right? We all have a project that's just been collecting dust for a while. So you've given such great advice to that, CHIZ. I had an actor-related question for you too. I do get the question a lot, but since you've been to LA and you've lived to tell about it and had reasonable success out there, and you still have all your contacts, what advice in a modern day would you give to actors who are thinking of pursuing the LA market?
Well, when I graduated, I went to New York because I was very, I think the best training for an actor is the theater. And when I teach scene study, I don't allow my actors to use screenplays or teleplays as their material for their scene work. I only use classic plays, drama from the theater, whether it be, from the ancient Greeks to the most modern plays. I find that that's the best way to break down a character, create a role, prepare and to build a role and prepare for breaking down the characters and scene study. I think that's very important. I went to New York. I was there for 10 years, and it was New York that propelled me to LA because I had had such a wonderful experience in the theater that I thought I was ready for Los Angeles. And then I bumped into a friend on the beach and started my television producing career, Eddie Entertainment Television. So there's a lot of work there. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of competition there, but it is a very, Amanda, Michael was saying you were LA based for a number of years. It's where it's at, but we're trying to get where it's at to come here. And it is happening. You know, it is a global destination now for creatives, but New York is still New York. LA is still LA. And if you want to make that move, you go, you invest, you take class, you meet people, you go to events like this, you schmooze, you cruise, you party, you network, you work. You got to drive Uber, 10 bar, wait on tables. You still got to get to acting class, invest in your makeup, your hair, your wardrobe, look great, your headshots, your digital presence, everything that you have. Market yourself like any professional would market themselves and get out there and do it. There are a lot of great casting directors out there that have very serious and legitimate casting workshops. Watch out for scams. There's scam artists in every town and every business, particularly rife in Hollywood and acting, but they're out there. And it's, you know, I love LA. I had a great career there. I raised a family there. I had a great career there. My kids are all out of college, so I'm in a position where I can kind of do what I want to do. And this is what I want to do now. And I'm delighted to be in Texas, and I'm real happy to be in Austin, in the Austin area. It's wonderful.
Well,
So yeah, that's a big yes. Go for it. And then come home with all that great talent and connections back to Austin.
Well, that's interesting too, because every time I do any avail check for an LA-based actor, they're always like, Austin? Oh yeah, we love going to Austin. Like, you don't have to twist their arm too hard to come.
We get that all the time. People are like, Austin, oh yeah.
Like, they would do it for free or a really discounted rate because they really want to just, we don't take advantage of that all the time.
We get that all the time. People want to come here.
Yeah, they want to spend 6 weeks here, 2 months here, 3 weeks.
Exactly.
Here. Yeah, just to get shots. That's a great place to kind of leave things. First of all, it's so good for me to get to know you, and I know everyone else in this room. So if you have been fortunate enough to know you this long, fortunate for them. But at the same time, it's such an honor to get to know you. And thank you for all the work that you continue to do for our industry, for our incentive, and just kicking butt at your studio. I mean, I've heard of your studio for a number of years, so you're still keeping it going, and that's just amazing. So thank you so much for what you do.
I'm so delighted to be here. My final thought would be this: if you're wrapping up, I just want to say I expect to see you all on a soundstage somewhere someday. I think we're all colleagues. I love my colleagues. I support and encourage everybody that I work with. It's a wonderful business full of really smart, talented, and gifted people. And you know, it's like a family. When you get on a set, one of the worst things ever for me is when you have a wrap party, because then you know that family has to split up, because you really fall in love with people and you become like a family, no matter what the tensions and the pressures and, you know, the fun and games and the hard work and the tears and the laughs. It's all part of the experience, but it's a wonderful, wonderful business. And I'm delighted to see you all and hope to see you all in person one day soon.
Are you on the socials? Do you do Twitter? Do you do Facebook? Do you do Instagram? Do you do any of those? Your studio?
The Instabook and the Facegram. Oh yeah, I'm out there somewhere. You can always find me. But I'm more of I'll check out what's going on around the world. I'm a voyeuristic. I don't post a lot. I just don't have time.
And will you be at Austin Film Festival this year? If any of us
always, yeah, oh yeah.
So are you normally at the writing panels and all that, or are you just all around?
Yeah, well, we've hosted them here, and they always ask me to do something. And at South by, we had a booth at South by, and you know, I do a lot of seminars and mixers and retreats and creative confabs. So AFF, South by, you open the refrigerator, the light goes on, I'll do 10 minutes. You know me.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for giving your time. I know time is valuable. Gary, I want you to send us out of here, but I wanted to thank Denise and Judy, and you, of course, Gary and Jason, for hopping on, and all of y'all. But I'm going to hand it over to Gary to send us out tonight.
Thanks, Michael.
And thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michael. You did a great thanking everybody in advance. You're way ahead of the game, both you guys. And what I really enjoyed from you, brother Chris, is your inspiration, your mindset, your head, the way you think, your progression. Just like as a fact, writing is rewriting, growing is rethinking. Love your brilliance, love your passion, man.
Thank
We're
you
so
so
lucky
very
to get
much.
with you. And for all you folks, check out the meeting chat. There's a link on YouTube that has all the past mixers. And this is going to be one of our most informative and best. Thank you so much, brother. Michael, all you
Delighted.
guys, thanks.
Thanks so much. Good night, everybody, and break a leg. We'll see you out there on the silver screen.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
You
Good
bet.
night. Take care.
So long.